Alright guys, we're back staring at my engine bay, and in this video we're going to talk about how to pick whether you need a high pressure fuel pump upgrade or a port injection upgrade or both. So this question is getting a lot more common because our platform is growing, and so a lot of people see all the different options and they want to know which one is best, especially if you're on stock turbo and you want to upgrade your fuel but not necessarily have to upgrade it again when you move on to a bigger turbo or just get aspirations to make more power. So I'll tell you guys the kind of information that I ask for and how I make that decision or how I make recommendations to other people. And hopefully that can help you make a decision for yourself. So we'll start off talking about the differences between a fuel pump upgrade and port injection. And then I'll talk about kind of the recommendations I make. So the first one and the most simple one is a fuel pump upgrade. And what that will do is replace this unit that's mounted to the top of your valve cover, and that is your high pressure fuel pump. The one that I have on my car is kind of an OEM plus upgrade. It is the pump from a second generation B58. It's also known as the TU pump or a super high pressure fuel pump, and that's a really good cheap upgrade that you can make on your car. But we also have several aftermarket stage 1 and stage 2 high pressure fuel pumps that you can upgrade to that will flow more and support more power. Now, a high pressure fuel pump upgrade is extremely nice because it plugs right into the same location as the original high pressure fuel pump. It is controlled completely by the DME. We have settings set up in the tuning platforms to help it adjust and control the high pressure fuel pump appropriately. And we also know that it maintains all of the OEM safeties and protections that the car has from the factory. So if you ever have issues with your fuel system or even anything separate from your fuel system like misfires, spark plug issues, O2 sensor issues, anything that would cause your car to go into limp mode, the car can safely cut power, reduce your boost, limit your fueling, whatever it needs to do to protect your engine. So that's a really nice feature to have, and it just makes it a nice clean OEM style upgrade that you don't really have to worry about as much. Now, the other option is port injection, and the goal of this is to completely separate your fuel injection upgrade needs from your stock fuel system. So you'll add 6 extra injectors right here between the manifold and the cylinder head, or you can upgrade your intake manifold to one that has provisions for injectors, and that will allow you to install 6 injectors just like a typical older engine would have, and that will flow a lot of fuel and can support a lot of power because it's completely separated from your stock high pressure fuel system. Now, the benefit of this is basically the sky's the limit as far as horsepower is concerned. You have very big injector options that you can use. You can look up cars running, 1,000 cc injectors and see what kind of horsepower they're making. So it supports a lot of power. Also, the injectors are off the shelf. So if you ever have an issue with your injectors, you can easily find replacements. So now we've talked about both systems, you understand how they work, and your question is, which one do you need? So the first thing I'll say is you need to understand your goals. And I ask that to everybody, is just you need to understand what fuel you want to run, what turbo you want to run, how much power you want to make. All of that is necessary in order to determine what fuel upgrade you want to go with. So to start things off, if I ask you what fuel you want to run and you tell me you're only going to run 93 octane, the best upgrade for you is just to get a TU pump. You're not going to be fuel limited. You're not going to have the same kind of issues that you would with an ethanol mix. So a TU pump can easily support as much power as the car can make on 93 octane. The issue that we have is the B58 in our cars is pretty high compression. So it relies primarily on octane and timing to make power, and it hits the octane limit pretty quickly. I think the most power that I've seen on 93 octane was the No Clutch Garage dyno, where he did about 560 wheel horsepower with a big turbo. And the issue again was that he started hitting the knock limit, so he couldn't add any more boost, he couldn't add any more timing. The only way he could make more power was to increase his octane. So to get that kind of horsepower, a TU pump should be fine. You can get like a stage 1 high pressure fuel pump if you want, just to have a little more headroom and potentially give you a little more torque down low. But ultimately, you're not going to be hitting a fuel flow issue with 93 octane. So for that kind of option, I typically just recommend getting a TU pump and looking at other options to increase your octane. I'll talk more about using meth injection in another video, so look out for that on my channel. That's pretty much the best way for you to get more power if you're stuck with 93 octane. So now let's say you're not stuck with 93 octane and you want to run E85 and your horsepower goals are over 700 wheel horsepower. Then I'm immediately going to tell you, get port injection. One of the limits that you have with a high pressure fuel system upgrade is you're going to be limited on power, and around 700 wheel horsepower is the most I've seen with just a fuel pump upgrade. I think the record right now for direct injection only is 711 wheel horsepower. If you're going over 700 wheel, I recommend getting port. That'll simplify it and you don't really need to do anything else. That'll give you as much headroom as you need. Now, if you're going to be running an ethanol mix and you want to run less than 700 horsepower, that's when I typically recommend a stage 1 or stage 2 high pressure fuel pump. The reason why I recommend that is because it's such a simple upgrade and it's the cleanest and easiest way to make good power on our cars. Yeah, port injection can support more power and it's not as limited down low as a high pressure fuel pump would be. But when you're running a bigger turbo, it meshes great with a high pressure fuel pump that flows most of its fuel where the turbo is making most of its power. Plus, with a stage 1 and stage 2 fuel pump, you'll still be able to make more torque down low than you would with the stock pump or just the TU pump. So if you're like most people on the B58 targeting, 600 to 650 horsepower, that seems to be pretty much the sweet spot for what most people are shooting for. In that case, I recommend just getting a stage 1 or stage 2 high pressure fuel pump just for simplicity purposes and ease of tuning purposes. You don't need to pay extra to get, an auxiliary fuel controller tuned like you would with a port injection system and things like that. Now, one thing I don't necessarily recommend anymore is getting both. If you already have a fuel pump upgrade and you start hitting the limits because you're really pushing your turbo, then port injection is probably the best route for you. But you can always try to recoup some of your costs and sell that pump and go back to the stock high pressure fuel pump. I haven't really seen a case where both a high pressure fuel pump upgrade and port injection are needed. Now, the only reason why some people might recommend upgrading both is because you're not going to be leaning on the port injection system as much. So for example, if you're shooting for 750 horsepower, in theory, you could make, 700 or so with just the high pressure fuel pump and only need an extra 50 horsepower worth of fuel from the port injection system. So if that goes bad, you, again, in theory, have a little more headroom and a little more safety and time for the car to protect the engine. But I still really don't see that being a big benefit. The headroom that you have by using mostly fuel from your direct injection system isn't really going to make or break the engine. It does make tuning easier, but if you're shooting for that much power, to me, it just makes more sense to get the port injection system and really let it make all the power that you need. So hopefully this video helps. If you guys have any other questions or comments, leave them down below. Thanks.